Hello, it's good to have you here. My name is Ore Bukola. I'm a career mentor and an inspirational speaker. I also write daily to thousands and thousands of career professionals in the bid to inspire them and spur them into taking massive actions towards their goals. Thank you for joining me here and for watching this video. Welcome. Let's address this career concern that someone has shared, which is basically thriving in a highly pressured work environment while writing professional exams. And I've got a couple of thoughts for you on how to thrive while doing that. In the last decade, I don't think there is any year that I have not sat one exam or the other while building my career. So I feel like I could talk about this actually, and I don't have writing points or whatever. I'm just going to share with you my experience, my thoughts, and I've also had colleagues who have done the same. So I'll share with you what I've seen and, just have you think about a couple of things. Now, if you are in a knowledge-based environment, so you are a consultant or you are an external auditor like myself, whatever, you are in the medical field, if you're in an environment where knowledge is sold, that is what you're selling, knowledge, then you must key into that. Knowledge has to be something that you continue to acquire, because that is the key that opens most doors. And I get it that it's not necessarily the case everywhere, but I would highly recommend it. If you are in an environment that knowledge is sold, please top up on the knowledge. Okay? Don't feel like, even if you're in an environment where it looks like, even if you do one more exam or you do a master's program or you do whatever, you go back to school, it doesn't look like it's being appreciated. It's just that environment, it's just that location. You don't know where you're going to be a couple of years from now. Okay, that particular certification may be useful. Okay, now another thing I'm going to say is this: the fact that certifications are useful, they also do not solve all your problems. Okay, so if you followed me for quite a bit, you will also know that I say this a lot. Being someone who has a couple of those certifications myself, I'll tell you in the last 5 years, nobody has really asked me where my certificates are, because when I work, it is my on-the-job performance that keeps me working. It is not my certificates. So your certification is just a pointer to your employer that you have gotten to that level of resilience that they can bank on for you to do your work. Nothing more, really. So don't think, oh, my certificates, when I get into, there are people with a lot of certificates that have been let go of their job because of their performance. So the number one thing is your performance on the job. Certification is great to help tick the box, but your on-the-job performance has to be nothing short of phenomenal. Okay, so as long as you understand that, we can then go into the basics. Now, if you getting a certification, now there are some certifications that are very basic. No, basic is not the right word. Fundamental. If you're an accountant, having your certificate that shows you're a chartered accountant is very fundamental across different countries, across wherever you are. Being a chartered accountant is like, that's what's expected. So if you're an accountant and you don't have that, you would have to try to have it. Any other thing that you build on top of that, any other certificates, whatever, is just additional. Okay, probably not required. It's just you trying to build yourself up. So if in the process of getting additional certificates, it looks like your work is suffering, then you need to go back and do a reflection. Okay, so you need to go back and do a reflection. So my thoughts for you will be that once you have been able to do the fundamental requirement for your job, always do that assessment to say this extra school I want to go back to, this extra certification I want to go and get, is it worth it? Especially if it is impacting your own job performance. Is it worth it? I digress again. So I'll come back to how do you then do it as you're working, you're doing your exams. How do you cope basically without, being burnt out and the rest? Now it's going to be difficult. I mean, the word difficult is what it is. If your job alone, especially if you're in a highly pressured work environment, your work alone is difficult. Adding an extra layer of difficulty on top of it is just insane. Okay? So because you know that already, what are the things that you need to do to make sure that you still keep your sanity while doing your exams, especially if they are the fundamental kinds of exams? The first thing I would say is, if you have other people in your work environment or with your employer who do the same exam, it would be good to partner with them, probably check in with them, have some sort of check-in, hold each other accountable. That can help, right? Especially because you're going through the same thing. So if, depending on their own study style, you may have a different study style, just see what works and see how you can benefit off of each other. Another thing I'm going to say is, the mornings before you go to work is usually the best time for you to study. And talking about that, I would say, if you know you're going to write an exam in December, for instance, that requires you to have like maybe 100 hours of study, or maybe 75 hours of study, maybe start in June, right? Maybe start in June and do 30 minutes every day or an hour every day, whatever, as long as it is very small. It can be like 30 minutes video. Start like way before you need to really start, because that's how you know that you're doing something right. It's like start way before you really need to start. I'm not very good at that personally, but I have seen how that works for people. Like, you see people, an exam takes you 4 months to prepare. People start doing it 8 months before and they stick to it. 1 hour every morning. So they leave for work at maybe 7 a.m. or whatever that is. They wake up at 5 or they wake up at 4:30 and they do that 1 hour every work day. Some people don't even do weekends. Just the work days, 1 hour every work day. And some people use their weekends. They study Saturdays only, but they do like a 7-hour sprint of study, but they start like 7 months before, 8 months before, and then they build it up like that. Okay, so don't do, you're rushing through a month to your exam. That's when you're rushing through. It probably not pass, because except you have like a photographic memory, because there are lots of things you should have done mock exams and the rest. So start a long time before others, especially if you know that your work is very demanding, and then build on top of it. That's what I would say when it comes to that. Another thing is this: if you're working in a highly pressured environment, it is almost always the case that you may not be able to go through a big book. So invest in tutors who provide you with more concise books and more concise content that will help you get through the content as quickly as you need to. So don't look at the money, even though that is important, but invest in that. So invest in people that can get you straight to what you need to know, rather than you trying to figure that out from a big book, maybe the curriculum that ICANN has given you, or the curriculum that CFA has given you, or whatever. So invest in that as well, so that you can get through things quite quickly and you don't necessarily have to be figuring things out, because you don't just have that time. Okay. Another thing that really works is if you have a speaker and you have some videos, randomly, you're not studying, just let the videos be playing on the speaker, and before you know it, you will think you're not learning. It will be very passive, but you still be picking 1 or 2 things. That's going to also help you. The next thing I'm going to say to you is you're going to do the hard things, especially when it comes to revision. Your revision has to be hard. And the reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of people feel like, oh, the exam shouldn't be that hard. So I'm just going to do the kind of pre-exam questions that are not so hard. So that that's why it's an exam. It's usually hard. So don't go and get surprised in an exam hall. So if there are exam questions that are hard, or a provider that provides very hard kind of mock exam, or go with those providers. The other things you can do, even if you get into the exam and it's simpler, you just see that, oh, okay, the exam was like, it's better for you to be like, oh, I did other mocks, and when I got into the exam it was way easier than you did easier mocks and review and you got into the exam and you said that it was difficult. So you don't want to get into that sort of situation. Another thing I'm going to say to you is that you should have a proper plan and try your best to work to that plan. Now, when you're drawing up your plan is when you have the most control. Draw up a plan that shows that you love yourself. So draw up a plan like reading an hour every day, and you if maybe you read something difficult today, you read something less difficult tomorrow. Just be kind to yourself with your plan. Don't just say, oh, I want to read this SFM, or I want to read this tax, and I'm going to block 4 hours to just do tax. Number one, you probably not do it. And number two is the anxiety that comes with you sitting down for 4 hours to do something. It's just ridiculous. So I'd rather you do 30 minutes, solve one question on tax and go away. Do something else, then come back later, do another 30 minutes, go away, come back later, whatever. But when it comes to studying, why you do highly pressured work is you need to be kind to yourself. I don't know that your job by itself is necessarily kind to you. You have control over this, so you need to be kind to yourself. Now, in the event that it is your employer that is sponsoring you to write your exams, and they expect you to pass your exams in a couple of tries, please, I want you to pay attention, and I want you to do everything you can to pass your exams. In my case, I've never really had an exam where an employer paid for me. So because of that, I've been a very good, I've failed very well because there is no motivation to pass. If I could say that, coming from someone who has failed a lot of exams and telling you all the things I probably would have done that I didn't do. And most times when I fail exam is because I don't have the time to do what it requires for me to pass the exam. Yeah, that's the reason. So the exam requires 4 months of intense study, maybe 3 hours per day or 4 hours per day. But I don't even start 3 months before. I probably start 6 weeks before the exam. And I just want to do everything. And I expect to be rewarded by passing that exam versus someone who has been studying for the same exams 8 months before. Do you see how that doesn't make sense? Yeah, so that happens a lot. So this is me telling you the things you should be doing that counters the thing I probably have done failing some of those exams. Now, in my particular case, and I know there will be people like me out there that will probably come across this video, I love my job. I love my job. Look, if I have an exam tomorrow and I'm not on leave and something comes on my job, I'm going to my job. It's not like it's because my employer requires anything. It's just me. It's just how I feel towards my job. And if there is anyone out there who feels the same way, like once they see work like this, their body will be shaking, like let's do it. If you are like me like that, then you need to be careful, because especially if it is your employer that is paying for your exam and they expect you to pass in a couple of tries, else your job is on the line, then you need to be smart. because there will be no job for you to be excited about if you fail your exam more than the tries they've given you and they let you go. So if you truly, truly love your job, then you should truly, truly pass your exams. Okay? Yeah. So if you love your job, you must create those boundaries. So I I write exams from time to time. Most times when I don't pass my exams, it's because I've not created those boundaries. Like, that once it's 5 o'clock, is your 5 o'clock is your closing time. Block out your calendar and say, I cannot take any meetings. I cannot do anything beyond 5 p.m. Have those conversations. Make sure that someone that has the right authority is backing you up with what you have said you would do or would not do. Now, that also comes with a lot of being smart, because people will also, that, probably you are in a season where people expect a lot from you. So let's say you're an auditor, for instance. Probably you have an exam in like March, okay, and but you also know that January, February is saying, like maybe the first 6 weeks in January, February is no go. What you can do is start studying earlier before Christmas. Maybe cover your curriculum. Try. Like that time, if you say you were going home at 5, I, as a manager, I would not really care, because yes, the time is coming when we have to go all in. So if before Christmas you are having to go home earlier to study, that will be absolutely fine, right? In the weeks where it is almost impossible as an auditor or as a consultant, just because of the projects you've got and all of that, what you then need to do is to capitalize on your weekends, especially if your weekend is not part of the package of your busy time. Because sometimes it may be, but if it is not, capitalize on that. But try to probably finish your first level of reading before you even come into the busy season, such that once you then come into the busy season, the weekends are just for you to like skim through, do some questions here and there. There are some days you may get to go home earlier, do some 30 minutes before going to bed, listen to videos on your commute. Sometimes while you work, you can have your headsets and videos can be playing in your ears. Like if you do something that is not like calculation required, and you would think you are just working. It's just like someone listening to music. You are just working and it's playing to you. At the point you just hear something, you're just like, okay. Before you know it, you accumulate all of those tips and tricks, all of those little things that you would not have picked up if you were just sitting down somewhere and just basically reading. And it then makes your review easier just because of all of those things that you are done. Now, you, as someone who works in a highly pressured work environment, another thing I would say to you is you need to be talking, especially if you've had an issue where you failed an exam before. Then you need to be talking about what you want to do. So a lot of people just say, my boss is bad, but they are saying it. If you ask, okay, why, what has your boss done? They can't really. Have you had this conversation with your boss? No, but your boss is bad. So do you see where I'm going? You need to have conversations. So you need to meet your boss to say, I'm writing an exam in April. This exam is very fundamental. This is how I think, so I've thought about it. This is how I think you can support me. Don't go and say, I need this, I need that, I need this. Put it on their lap to say, look, if I pass this exam, I will have, after my exam, I'll be all yours to do everything we need to do. I'll be here full time, whatever. But before my exam, if just in case you were wondering how you could help me, this is how I think you can help me. And maybe during I want to close. Some people even say they want to close 30 minutes earlier. Some people can even say, I will start working 30 minutes earlier and close 30 minutes earlier. And in that conversation, some people can even say an hour earlier, an hour, whatever that is. But if you word it properly and say, if you tell me everything I need to do the night before, whatever, or the mornings or whatever, and you yourself, you must show that during that work day, make sure that you are productive and you're going back to your boss and you're saying, maybe around noon, maybe after lunch, you say, okay, what are the remaining things we need to do today so I can quickly get them done before I go. Just being proactive and being on top of your areas for work. But once things starts dropping because you are not really there, then they don't feel the need to really support you because their work is also at stake. Okay. Yeah. Is there anything else I have missed? I mean, go and think about some of these things, yeah. And if you know, there's another thing. If you know that you're not a very good test taker, that's another thing that you may need to. There are lots and lots of content on YouTube that can help you in terms of how to learn some key concepts without cramming and all of that. There are a lot of videos around that can help you in terms of technical things you need to do when it comes to reading. But I definitely feel your pain because I've been there, I'm writing there, so I know how these things can be. But hopefully this has been very helpful for you. Thank you very much and see you in the next video. Thank you for taking your time to watch this video. I'm sure you enjoyed it and you learned something during the course of watching this video. If you liked everything you saw, please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification so you can get notified every time a new video is dropped to inspire and spur you to take action. Also like, share and comment so that others can also see this and benefit from it. Thank you and see you in the next one.